and the skybridge he swore was closed to guests. The calendar square arrived at 6:06 p.m., tidy as a room service check. Founders, reception, Larkspur Hotel, late. 2 minutes later, Damien texted, "Don't wait up." Facilities asked me to peek at a sensor fault on the West Skybridge after the speeches. Proud of me. Read he spends the heart when the rest of the sentence is asking for diplomatic immunity. I turned the chili down to the kind of simmer that calls itself maturity and looked out across the district toward the Larkspur. At dusk, the hotel wears its glass like a rehearsed compliment. 2 towers joined across the street by a suspended corridor, a vein of light that seems to carry the building's ideas between ribs. The square on my phone pulsed once and then behaved. I rinsed an already clean spoon because sometimes unnecessary is the only honest verb available. At 6:28, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize and a message that recognized me anyway. If the reception, in the North Ballroom, why did he just badge the service lift and head for the West Skybridge? Doc Dorsey reader hates witnesses, cover it and pull. I can stall sweep 2 minutes. Signed with a single letter, V, as if the alphabet had leaned on a housekeeping cart and promised not to squeak. Vic runs nights at the Larkspur with the calm of a man who can hear a hinge change its mind. He and Damien trade competence in a dialect of guest moods and black box safety. He and I have shared 2 cigarettes above the loading dock where the hotel lets its glamour sweat. Once we laughed hard enough that a camera panned like it wanted to learn timing. We have not touched. I remember not touching more clearly than most men remember vows. "Why tell me?" I wrote. "Because your calendar is polite and my badge logs aren't," he sent back. Because he looked up before he swiped. People only look up there when they want oxygen. Because closed to guests is keep out the way champagne is hydration. Doc C's red eye forgave my palm after a sulky blink. Inside, the service corridor smelled like new carpet and old money learning to behave. The freight lift side open. A housekeeping cart stood waiting like an alibi on wheels. A laminated map, fire evacuation, please read, drew a rectangle around the West Skybridge as if it might misbehave. Floors rose like reasons. The doors parted onto a narrow back hall where the air cooled and the carpet started believing in itself. The West Skybridge is a glass throat between towers, a long confession suspended over traffic. The public entrance was roped with a sign, temporarily closed. The service door at the far end offered a lock that knew my palm by rumor. Beyond it, the bridge breathed conditioned air and moneyed quiet. City lights smudged the glass. Headlights combed the street below, a flow chart of other people's emergencies. At midspan, Damien stood with his jacket off, and his shirt open one button past credible, tie rolled into his pocket like a plausible denial. Opposite him leaned Pierce Alden, developer, board vice chair, a roomer with a penthouse in each tower and a smile trained to belong on metal plaques. Pierce's 2 fingers rested on the stainless rail as if steel owed him interest. His other hand hovered near Damien's wrist without landing, because proximity photographs better than contact when your brand buys skyline and invoices discretion. "Closed to guests looks conversational," I said. Damien turned. For a beat, truth used his face like glass before it reflects. Then the public version of him arrived with its correct angles and moderated breathing. "Kellen," he said, how did." "Vic likes nouns," I said. "I like doors." Pierce smiled in the tone of stewardship. "We were evaluating a lateral shift," he said. "Patrons love believing bridges are loyal." "I prefer loyalty that doesn't need a photographer," I said. Damien took 1 step toward me and gave the second back to the floor, because floors like feeling necessary. "We were listening for a twitch in the bearings," he said. He wanted to hear the room without violins. Sound is persuasive, Pierce said, opening both hands like tasteful parentheses. 2 minutes. The sweep is punctual. My driver believes in theater. He drifted to the glass and studied our reflections like a collector appraising pieces he might not actually buy. As he passed, 2 fingers tapped Damien's shoulder. Punctuation, not possession. The bridge gave a faint, proper shiver at a gust that had read the manual. Damien watched me the way men watch weather when they hope thunder found a different address. "I was going to text you," he said, lower now, using the register he keeps for mornings and the soft under my jaw. "After. I wanted to know I could leave this room without letting it rename me." "You wanted to be caught," I said. "Not punished, caught." He exhaled. The duct above us accepted his breath and pretended it had earned it. "Yes." There is a height at which grammar resigns. I crossed the span and put my mouth on his because glass deserves honesty and air deserves witnesses. He kissed back with the relief of a man who has been paying interest on restraint, compounded nightly by applause and skyline. He tasted like Gala bourbon and the faint metallic clean of a building that never sweats where guests can see. My thumb found the hinge of his jaw and pressed. He made the small, involuntary sound I keep receipts for. His palm slid under my shirt and settled flat between my shoulder blades like a promise that refuses notarization. We didn't undress. The bridge charges extra and cameras learn quickly. He broke the kiss first because he knows the exact second heat applies for narrative. He put his forehead to mine. Somewhere below, a horn tried briefly to be relevant and then remembered manners. "I didn't kiss him," he said. "I wanted to want to. I texted Vic." "You did," I said. "He prefers oxygen to salvage." Pierce tilted his head with the tidy curiosity of a man who assumes architecture is always about him. He didn't approach. The city flickered in the glass like an alibi rehearsing its lines. "Come home," Damien said. "After I thank the person who hears bearings from a freight lift away," I said. Vic waited at the service door with a lanyard looped over 2 fingers and that unpriced stillness that persuades machines to keep their promises. He didn't smile. He also didn't make mercy expensive. "Sweep hits the bridge in 90, he said. "If you don't want to explain your lives to a flashlight that recognizes your shoes, take service stair W2 down 1 flight, cross through laundry, then up W3. The doc cam believes every linen cage is a linen cage." "You sent the message," I said. "I opened a door," he said. "You two remembered how to walk." Laundry was humid with clean industry. Sheets sailed between rollers like rational clouds. A woman with her hair knotted in green fabric glanced up once, decided we weren't her problem, and returned to folding beds back into promises. The service stairs offered us a quiet that understood discretion. The dock door gave us the alley. The alley gave us night. Night declined to take notes. We chose sidewalks over lobbies because lobbies write captions. At home, the chili forgave me for confusing patience with character. We ate standing, like mammals who know where the bowls live. He told me Pierce had been sculpting a compliment into a proposition for weeks, and he had helped because selection feels like love when usefulness empties your pockets. I told him Vic had texted because some people choose air over alibi. He didn't ask whether Vic and I had ever been a worse idea. I didn't say how a blue indicator on a fire panel turns Vic's mouth into punctuation that finally understands itself. We didn't fight. There wasn't theater left to sell. Later, in bed, we left a sliver of cool like a reservation and then let it surrender because the night had already billed us for restraint. He kissed me with the steadiness I trust more than policy. I put my mouth where his jaw goes humble and told it a morning. It was heat without spectacle. The building minded its radiators. Across the district, the bridge practiced forgetting names, and we allowed it. Morning behaved. Coffee made its case. Light drew rectangles across the table like invoices that finally learned mercy. The calendar square for tonight stayed blank, which in this town is the kink we can afford. Damien tied a tie over a throat I intend to retire with patience and kissed me like the door already knew our names. He left to explain continuity to a breakfast that confuses glass with goodness. At 9:14, a text arrived from a number saved as one letter. No bridge cam saw anything but skyline. I looped a sensor test for 20. Consider it training. I sent, you're very proud of your training. He replied, I'm proud of your exit. No punctuation correct. By noon, a lifestyle site posted Pierce in a champagne halo under a headline about cities stitched together above the street. I scrolled past. It wasn't our room. At 1:22, Damien sent a photo of our kitchen plant basking in a dutiful square of sun. Room exists, he wrote. The week pretended to be a conference schedule you could trust. Pierce sent a revised pledge with fewer adjectives and more commas. Damien read to the part where the commas began to behave like a harness and set it face down. He pressed his forehead to my temple for a quiet 7 count. Air returned to work. 2 nights later, the hotel hosted Skyline Night, honest wristbands, real families, kids learning that bridges can be kind and views can be enough. We went together, because sometimes the correct grammar is plural. Vic nodded once from a service corner like an usher who had already chosen a side. Pierce shook Damien's hand while a photographer taught glass to glow. A reporter asked about legacy. Damien pointed to a maintenance tech kneeling to show a boy how to check an expansion joint without scolding the metal and said, legacy is what keeps rooms gentle. And the reporter wrote it down like she'd earned a truth. On the walk home, we took the block with the laundromat that smells like soap deciding to be brave. Damien slid 2 fingers into my back pocket in the way that says not mine but here, and the knight did the decent thing and looked away. We burned the toast and ate it anyway. At the bedroom door, he kissed me the way good sentences land, without ornament, unavoidable. I answered as if verbs were the last honest currency. It did not stay tidy. It never does here. An anonymous account posted a grainy still, 2 silhouettes blurred in the skybridge glass, one hand too near to be polite. The caption invented entanglement, the comments rented outrage and billed by the breath. I set my phone face down beside the plant and watched the plant win. Damien texted a different image. A service corridor at noon, Vic showing a teen intern how to listen to a bearing with a stethoscope while a vibration plot confessed contentment. Our version works for a living, he wrote. Sunday arrived with rain that had read the manual. Vic texted, bridge quiet. Want a stool where nobody sells you a seat. We went. He poured us paper cups of coffee that tasted like competence and showed us which sensor lies first, why you never trust a door that apologizes, and the tiny change in tone that means a hanger rod wants attention. He didn't flirt with anything, not even the truth. He stood with his hands in his jacket pockets and told us a joke about rich men who think load paths are metaphors. I liked him better for refusing to be necessary when he didn't need to be. Midweek, the foundation staged a press moment to announce apprenticeships for building systems techs. Damien spoke first, about bolts and volunteers and the joy of maintenance, the only speech that ages correctly. Pierce promised to help the city meet its skyline on time, a sentence that managed to spend nothing and still collect applause. After, he shook Damien's hand and then looked at me with the careful respect of a man evaluating whether he cannot purchase. You're both very good at exits, he said. Practice, I said. He laughed because it was the only honest thing left on his card. A columnist with an adjective habit implied Damien's access came courtesy of private tour. The piece included a photo of a corridor that could have been any corridor and a paragraph that could have been any rumor. The comments did their choreography. I carried the plant to the sink and let water talk to its roots like a promise we could keep. That night we turned our phones face down and cooked like people who still believe heat tells the truth. On a windy Thursday, Vic sent a single word, weather, and we met him in the mechanical penthouse where turbines negotiated with rain. He showed us which drain floods first, where to stand when lightning auditions near a curtain wall, and how to hear the soft hesitation that means a damper is about to miss its cue without kindness. He didn't ask about the photo. We didn't say his name out loud. 3 people wide under ductwork that learned to breathe before we did. We let the storm remove adjectives we didn't need. Life kept refusing to be purchased. Pierce kept sending commas that wanted homes. Damien kept returning them with better ones. The plant kept inventing a shade of green that turns vanity domestic. We kept our calendar squares blank on purpose, because blanks are the only promises rooms respect. Sometimes, near midnight, we walk the avenue and look up at the West Skybridge. From the street you can't see the rail where 2 fingers hovered like punctuation, or the small, decent posture of a man who teaches heavy glass to be gentle. You can only see a disciplined glow pretending not to belong to anyone. That's as it should be. We circle the block and go home without letting the building perform at us. He takes my wrist like a man reteaching himself the grammar of doors. I think about the skybridge and the 2 minutes that were enough, about how some rooms try to own you and others teach you to leave correctly. Sometimes I think about Pierce paused by the glass like a man who wants to buy air and discovering it doesn't invoice. Sometimes I think about Vic's line, "I opened a door," and how it's the only biography I want for this version of us. Tonight's square is empty. We're leaving it that way. Let the hotel keep its speeches and the city its applause. We have the service stairs, a plant we refuse to let die, and the quiet grammar of a decision that knows where it belongs. Not in the rumor, not in the photo, but in the mouth that learned to say come home and mean it. If we get caught again, let it be by each other. The rest of the world can rehearse height. We'll be in the room that doesn't need it, counting breaths until they sound like bearings settling into kindness, and a morning we can afford, and calling that enough.